Hello friends, my name is McGinnis, and today I'm going to be telling you all about the books that I brought back from Book Expo America. I know at this point BEA was last month and most people have their BEA hauls already up, but let's just jump into this without excuses or anything like that, and I'll be talking about these books in order that they will be released across the next year. The Sudden Appearance of Hope by Claire North. I didn't originally have this book on my wish list or schedule, but I heard somebody in the group that I was with talk about it and I can't remember who, and I didn't recognize the author's name until they mentioned that this was the author that also wrote the first 15 lives of Harry August. Towards the end of BEA, publishers were just kind of putting the things that they had left over out on tables for people to grab, and that's how I found this book. This is a speculative fiction story about a girl that nobody can remember. This started on her 16th birthday and has gotten progressively worse. She can interact with people, but people cannot hold her in their memories. This, she tells us, is a pretty dangerous thing because this means that she cannot be held liable for her actions. This is one of the few books that I already started from this haul. I read the first 25 pages or so, and I'm actually really intrigued about the premise, especially because the beginning of the story sets up her premise really quickly. Nobody can remember her, but then we have this app that is getting super popular, and then we also get the introduction of her being a thief. So I'm really curious about how all of those things are going to come together and what exactly the story is here. Being released in July of 2016, Arabella of Mars by David D. Levine. I will start by saying that Levine was probably the most precious author that I got to meet during the whole event. In fact, I thought he was a debut author because that's how excited he was to meet people and to talk to people, and he was just so passionate and kind and nice. I really thought this was his first event or something, but no, not at all. In the story, we follow Arabella, who was born on Mars in the 18th century, but her mother makes her move back to England to kind of quell her adventurous spirit. After a few months in England, Arabella gets word that her family back in Mars, her brother and her father stayed, are in trouble, and so this is the story of her posing as a boy in order to get on a ship that is going back to Mars to help her family. Releasing in September of 2016, Three Dark Crowns by Kendare. I don't know if you guys can tell because I'm trying to hold this at an angle so it doesn't get all glary, but this cover is a little bit crusty, and I promise you guys that I've already tried to wipe it down a couple of times, but I was sharing a room for a little bit of the weekend with Jordan from the Jordan Journals, and she accidentally spilled some milk that had been, like, she was eating cereal. Captain Crunch milk basically fell all over this thing, but I kept it, and I'm just gonna keep trying to get it uncrusty, I guess. In this young adult fantasy story, three sisters are fighting for the crown, so they are all eligible for the crown, but it's kind of a fight to the finish for them, and all of them are supposed to have these powers, but two of the sisters don't actually have the powers they're supposed to have, and they team up against their third, more powerful sister. A Shadow Bright and Burning by Jessica Cluess, which is also a young adult fantasy story being released in September of 2016. This was one of the first books that I picked up at BEA. I will say that before I went, I watched a couple of those videos that give tips and tricks about what to expect at BEA, and I don't, even after watching, I wasn't really clear what you do at BEA, or, you know, what's kind of expected and what's up for grabs, and I even had a schedule, but I think that there is an amount of preparation that you can do before you get there. It's difficult to describe exactly how things happen there. So while I had my schedule and there were some things that I for sure wanted to do, I'm the kind of person that I suffer really bad first and secondhand embarrassment. I get a lot of anxiety about things that could potentially be embarrassing for me or others. And so I wanted to kind of play it safe when I first got to the event, and I stuck close to, you know, a group of people to kind of show me the ropes and see what was going on. And on that first day, I think it was not the first day of the event, but the first day that we went on the floor in the morning, this was one of the first things that was being released, and the people that I was with were really excited about it, so I decided to tag along with them, and I grabbed a copy for myself. That was a lot of explanation that basically meant I wasn't interested in this before BEA, but I was learning the ropes, and so I grabbed a copy. In the story, our main character Henrietta has the ability to burst into flames, and when that is discovered, she is whisked away to London, where she is meant to serve the Queen. It is believed that she is a chosen one, but she's not. So the entire kind of question of this is, what do you do if people think you are the chosen one, but you're not? Leave Me by Gayle Forman. On the third day, we were just walking around, and I noticed a long line at a booth I hadn't yet checked out, and it just so happened that Gayle Forman was actually signing this book, and I was really curious about it because it is an adult release, and I've only read YA fiction from Gayle Forman. And my impression of Gayle Forman has always been that it's above average prose with below average plots. It's generic YA contemporary plots, but Forman knows how to write. So I'm super curious about an adult release from her. Leave Me is a story of a busy mother who suffers a heart attack, but then she feels like a burden during her recovery. She feels like people are treating her like a burden. So she decides to pack up all her things and go to the land of self-discovery. The Lesser Bohemians by Eimear McBride. McBride's debut novel was 2013's A Girl is a Half-Formed Thing, which I haven't read myself, but it is a very polarizing book. There are people who love it and people who hate it, so I'm very intrigued by her. And then I saw this on one of those last days where there were just piles of books being given out by publishers, and when I saw that she was the author, I knew that I had to grab myself a copy. This is set in the 1990s, and it follows an 18-year-old in London who has a relationship with an older man, and this is set across the 1 year that they are together. Also releasing in September of 2016, The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. I have 2 other Mindy McGinnis books that I haven't read yet, but I also saw her at YALLFest, and she speaks so well. She presents herself very well. She seems very funny and friendly, and I enjoyed hearing her in the several panels that I got the chance to see her on. So when I saw that this was also going to be at BEA, I put it on my schedule. This is a YA contemporary novel about a girl whose sister is murdered and that crime is never solved. And in this story, it kind of brings together that main character and then a boy, the popular boy in school, and also another person who becomes her close friend. It's not entirely a very unique premise, but I'm rooting for Mindy. Releasing in October of 2016, The Terranauts by T.C. Boyle. I heard about this book from Joss from Squibbles Reads, who was really our go-to person for releases that were in the adult category, and also for just like random little tidbits that nobody else knew. She knew where to find these things. This story is told through multiple perspectives about 8 scientists who are living in a self-contained Earth colony prototype. Joss described it as existentialism in space, and I was just there. I also gave myself a sneak peek of this book, so I read about the first 25 pages, and I was really pleased to find that even though the back of the book blurb tells you basically which of the characters that you're reading from get into the program, I still felt tense as I was reading about the selection process. So that was very exciting, that the writing was dynamic enough that even knowing the outcome, I was still invested and pretty quickly invested in what was going on in the story. So I really look forward to finishing this one up. Also releasing in October of 2016, Replica by Lauren Oliver. I think everybody who met me during BEA heard me mention this book at one point or another. I have said multiple times on this channel that I have a love-hate relationship with Lauren Oliver. Again, I think her prose is really great, but she suffers when it comes to plotting. So I really enjoyed Before I Fall. Liesel and Poe is a book that I'm going to take a pause right now and tell you to please go read that book. It's middle grade, but it is beautiful. It is wonderful. I love it so much. It's very dear to me. So I love that book. Before I Fall, I enjoyed. I really enjoyed parts of Delirium, but by the time that I got to the second book, I threw that book across the room by the end of the story, and I never went back to finish off the series. I DNF'd Panic, and I have Rooms and Vanishing Girls on my shelf waiting to be read. So again, it's very hit or miss for me and Lauren Oliver, but that's why I feel compelled to buy everything she writes and try it out. According to the original schedule that was posted by BEA, she was going to be signing, I think either Wednesday or Thursday morning, one of those, but when I got there, they had actually rescheduled the signing, but they also had a schedule of just straight drops that you could go and pick one up. And the next day, I actually didn't stay at the event all day. I ended up having to leave early, so I missed all of the drops. Like every possible opportunity where I could have gotten this book, it just didn't work out for me. But on the last day, beautiful, sweet Joss saw this randomly on a table. It was a HarperCollins table. She didn't steal it from anybody, but she saw one lost copy on the table and she grabbed it for me. So the book that I spoke about the most throughout the weekend, I finally was able to grab. So thank you, Joss. I really appreciate it. You are a rock star. This book is told from 2 different perspectives, and the first perspective is a girl who learns that her father is involved in this like really creepy institution, and the second perspective is about a girl trying to escape that institution. So one one girl's coming out, one girl's trying to get in, and you can basically start the story from either end. So this is one perspective, and then if you flip it around, this is the other perspective, and you can start the book from either end. And it's a little bit more, Gemma's perspective is a little bit longer, a little bit more than halfway, but you can see that the story kind of meets in the middle, and then you can read the second part. When I start reading this, I think I'm going to start reading from Lyra's perspective, simply because Lyra is one of my favorite character names from another little series you may have heard of. That's basically my entire reasoning. Also releasing in October of 2016, The Mortifications by Derek Palacio. And what I'm quickly realizing was a theme for my BEA week. I actually saw someone else pick up this book, read the back, and decide it wasn't for them, but they mentioned like what they recapped it for me, and as soon as she said a couple of key buzzwords, I knew that this story was one that I had to bring home. It's a story set in the 1980s after a woman flees Cuba, and instead of settling with the Cuban communities that had been rising up in Miami at that time, she decides to go to Connecticut. The last line in this description back here calls this an intoxicating family saga and a timely, urgent expression of longing for one's true homeland. I love reading about immigrant experiences. I love reading about what makes a homeland and what makes a national identity, so I'm really excited to pick this up. Even though I don't know anything at all about the author, the description is totally me. Releasing in November of 2016, The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. First in line had a table set up at one of the blogger events, and we went in there and they were actually giving away 3 arcs. It was this, Gemina by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, and Girl in Pieces, I believe it was called, which is a YA contemporary about self-harm. I honestly really wanted Gemina. I haven't read Illuminae, but I own it, so I thought it would be cool to have the second part of that so that I could read them both back to back. But there was one copy of Gemina when I approached the table, and someone else scooped it up before I could, so this was my consolation prize. Sorry, I just haven't read anything else by Nicola, but I've heard good things, and this is a story that features diversity, which is of course something that I always look for to fill up my reading. In this story, a girl meets a guy, and it's that kind of faded love at first sight thing, but in this story, the girl's family is actually being deported back to Jamaica the day after she meets this guy. So also releasing in November 2016, Blood for Blood by Ryan Graudin. I actually received this because there was a table where you rolled a dice, and depending on what it landed on, you got like one assigned arc. I got something different, and I can't remember what the title was, and when I grabbed that, Riley had actually gone in front of me, and she got this. And she looked at what I had, and she kind of had like those, oh my god, that's the one I wanted eyes. So I was totally okay with trading because I know for a fact that I'm going to read Wolf by Wolf, so this will be great to have on hand. Hopefully I'll get to the first one and the second one before the release date so I can let you guys know how this went. Also releasing in November of 2016, Heartless by Marissa Meyer. The lines for Heartless were incredible. I think it was one of the most anticipated releases at BEA. I have read the first 3 books in the Lunar Chronicles. I own Winter, I own Ferris, but I haven't read them yet, and I will, and it's a series that I enjoy. It's not my favorite, it's not the best, but it's just a downright enjoyable series, and so I know that once I'm in the mood, I will sit down and just kind of devour the last book and finish that off. And I'm very curious about Meyer in a different setting and doing something else. So I actually, with the ticket package that I purchased, I had a front of the line pass, and I saved it up to the last day. So on the last day, I actually was able to go to the front of Marissa Meyer's line. I met her. She was very sweet, and I actually met her once before at Y'all Fest, and I thought this time around she was a little more friendly and personable, so that was cool. Releasing in January of 2017, Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I originally heard about this young adult fantasy story through Top 5 Wednesday videos. A lot of people name this in their top 5 books or top 5 authors that they would want to meet. She is a debut author, and this story, when I heard it described in some of those Top 5 Wednesday videos, it was described as being kind of like the Night Circus, and that was a great little buzzword thing for me to hear because I really enjoy the Night Circus, and if this is anything like that, or this setting is anything like the setting in the Night Circus, I know that I will enjoy this as well. In this novel, 2 sisters have lived all their lives on this island, and then one sister gets engaged, which is apparently bad news for her because it means that she will never get to see Caraval, which is this kind of show where the audience gets involved in the show. Before she gets married off, though, she does receive an invitation to go and see Caraval, and she goes, and like crazy things happen, including her sister being kidnapped by the showrunner. So it's kind of a weird premise if I'm being very honest, but again, I'm most looking forward to the setting interesting, and to seeing how all of these different elements from like the arranged marriage to a kidnapping kind of come together. Also releasing in January of 2017, Little Deaths by Emma Flint. I honestly have no idea how I ended up with this book, but I have it, and it is a thriller, and it is set in 1965 about a mother whose 2 children are killed and she becomes the prime suspect. Releasing in February of 2017, I have Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. This is another sweeping saga about a family away from their homeland, which again is just right up my alley, so I wanted to make sure that I picked up a copy of this at BEA as well. In addition to those arcs, I also picked up a couple finished copies at BEA. Emperor of the 8 Islands by Lian Hern. This is the first book in what I believe to be also an epic told in 4 parts. So again, another family saga, but this is Japanese folklore inspired. The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. If you've seen some of my recent videos, you know that I actually just started reading this series this year, and I am currently reading Blue Lily Lily Blue. I'm enjoying it. I think there are some really fantastic things about the series. It is so strange and unique in the best possible way. It is not without its faults, but I'm enjoying the layered story, the characters, and just again the uniqueness of the setting and the plot. So I'm pretty speedily progressing through these, and I knew that she was going to be signing the Raven King there, so I stood in line to meet her. She again was very personable. I told her that I had been waiting in line and like hoping not to catch any spoilers for this, which I did not, and I'm amazed that nobody spoiled this book for me at all as I stood in that line for maybe an hour or so. I still haven't heard any spoilers online either. Please don't ruin this for me. I'll be getting to this pretty soon. Bone Gap by Laura Ruby. This is on my schedule to go and get because I have heard really great things about this, especially from Caitlin from Book Chats. She loves the story, and even before I knew that she was going to be standing in this line for this, I had it on my schedule, so we got to stand around a little bit. We had an amazing time talking while we were waiting, so that was great, and I just, from everything that she said about the story, I'm really looking forward to it. That's it for me. I believe this was 20 books in total, which I'm very, very happy with. It is so easy to come back with so many books from BEA, especially if you are kind of indiscriminately picking them up, which it's very tempting to do because we all love books and there's so many books. But you guys know how I curate my shelves and how it's very important to me to have a collection of things I love and not simply things that I wanted to just kind of fill space with. It goes against my minimalist heart to have so many things. So I feel like 20 books was really well done on my part. If you guys have any questions or comments about any of the things that I brought back or about the event itself, because like I said, it's very hard to describe how it goes, but I would love to chat with you guys about it. I had an amazing time. I had an amazing time meeting publishers and meeting authors and grabbing books and waiting in line with people who also love books and create content and talking to them about our community. Anytime that you can be in that kind of environment with like-minded people, it's a good time because you already have this baseline for something you have in common. So I really enjoyed myself. Yes, the event itself could be hectic just because it's a lot of people. Anytime you have a lot of people in a space, it can get hectic, but it was never something that was uncontrollable or something where I ever felt in danger or unsafe. It was just a lot of people, and that was fine. I had a great time. Thanks to everybody who I met. Everybody was incredibly sweet, and now I'm gushing. I'm gushing because I had a great time. So, like I said, if you guys have any questions or comments for me, leave them down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this very long video. I will see you guys soon. I love you, Jordan. I'm kidding. It's totally fine. You spilled Captain Crunch milk on this book. It's okay. Stranger things happened at BEA.